In 2010, a team of psychologists gave people Tylenol for a broken heart. Not as a metaphor, as an actual clinical experiment. And it worked. The participants who took it reported feeling less social pain, less rejection, less of whatever it is you feel when someone cuts you out. Pain is pain. Your brain does not know the difference. But we'll come back to that, because to understand what that study actually means, you need to understand what your brain was built to do, and why the system it built for survival might be the same reason a text message can ruin your entire day. Let's start with the experiment. In 2003, a social neuroscientist named Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA sat volunteers down in front of a computer screen and told them they were playing a simple ball-tossing game with two other players online. The game was called Cyberball. The volunteers could see their avatar on screen, catching and throwing a digital ball back and forth. For the first few rounds, everything was fine. Then, without warning, the other two players stopped throwing to the volunteer. They just tossed it between themselves, completely excluding the volunteer from the game. That was the entire experiment, a ball-tossing game where you get left out, and the volunteers' brains lit up like they'd been punched. Eisenberger was watching their brain activity in real time through an fMRI scanner, and the region that activated during social exclusion, the moment the ball stopped coming, was the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, a region of the brain with a very specific job. It is the alarm system for physical pain. It fires when you burn your hand. It fires when you break a bone. It fires when tissue in your body is damaged and needs your immediate attention. It also fires, apparently, when a stranger stops including you in a computer game. Eisenberger published her findings in Science that same year. The paper was called "Does Rejection Hurt?" And her answer, supported by the scan data, was yes, in the most literal neurological sense of the word. Rejection doesn't feel like pain. It is pain, processed by the same neural hardware, routed through the same alarm system, registered by the same brain that keeps you from touching a hot stove. But here's what nobody could explain yet. Why? Why would evolution build a system like this? Why would a brain designed for physical survival wire emotional rejection into the same circuit as a broken leg? The answer goes back further than you'd expect. Much further. For most of human evolutionary history, being removed from your group was not a social inconvenience. It was a death sentence. Humans are not fast. We are not strong. Our teeth are useless as weapons. Our skin offers almost no protection. We have no claws, no venom, no natural armor of any kind. What we had was each other. A human alone on the African savanna 100,000 years ago was a human who was going to die, probably within days. The group was not optional. The group was survival itself. So your brain built a warning system. The same way it learned to flag physical damage with pain, to force your attention toward threats to your body. It learned to flag social damage with the same signal. Exclusion hurts because, for nearly all of human history, exclusion killed. The pain wasn't a flaw in the system. It was the system working exactly as designed. The problem is that the system never got updated. In 2011, psychologist Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan took this further. He recruited people who had experienced an unwanted romantic breakup within the past 6 months. People who still described the experience as intensely painful. He placed them inside a brain scanner and showed them two things. First, a photograph of their ex-partner. Then, a photograph of a friend. And alongside each photograph, he applied a small thermal device to their forearm. Enough heat to produce real, measurable physical pain. Not harmful, just genuinely uncomfortable. When the participants looked at the photo of their ex, the same brain regions activated as when the heat device fired. The same regions. Not similar ones, not overlapping ones, the same ones. Kross published the study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. His conclusion was careful but clear. The neural distinction between social and physical pain is far smaller than anyone had assumed. The experience of looking at someone who broke your heart activates the same sensory processing system your brain uses to register a burn on your arm, which finally explains something that language had always known but science had never confirmed. We don't say rejection feels like pain by accident. We say it feels like a punch in the gut, like a stab in the chest, like something being torn out of you. Every language on Earth uses physical metaphors to describe emotional pain. And for a long time, scientists assumed that was just poetry, just imprecise language reaching for the closest available comparison. It wasn't poetry, it was accuracy. Now, here's the part that changes how you think about other people. If rejection is pain, real neurological, biological pain, then the way we talk about it becomes a problem. We tell people to toughen up. We tell them it's just feelings. We tell them what happened to them isn't a big deal, that they're being sensitive, that they need to move on. And we say all of this to people who are, in the most literal sense that neuroscience can measure, hurting. Not metaphorically hurting. Hurting. The Tylenol study makes this impossible to ignore. In 2010, psychologist C. Nathan DeWall at the University of Kentucky ran a series of experiments where participants took either acetaminophen, standard over-the-counter Tylenol, or a placebo every day for 3 weeks. At the end of the study, the people who had taken Tylenol reported significantly less social pain in their daily lives, less hurt feelings, less of the ache that comes from feeling excluded or unwanted. And when DeWall scanned a separate group taking Tylenol versus a placebo and exposed them to social rejection, the neural activity in the pain processing regions of the Tylenol group was measurably reduced. A painkiller designed for headaches and sore muscles, quietly dulling the hurt of human disconnection at the same time. DeWall was careful not to suggest Tylenol as a treatment for loneliness. That's not what the study was saying. What it was saying was something more fundamental. The same biological machinery that processes a sprained ankle also processes the feeling of not being wanted. They are not two different systems that happen to use similar language. They are one system applied to two different kinds of threat. But here's what Eisenberger found when she kept digging, and this is the piece most people never hear. The intensity of the pain response to rejection is not fixed. It varies, and what it varies with is something called perceived social support. People who reported having strong relationships, who felt genuinely connected to others in their lives, showed measurably lower activity in the pain regions when exposed to social exclusion. The neural alarm still fired, but it fired quieter. People who reported feeling chronically lonely showed the opposite pattern. The same rejection stimulus produced a significantly stronger pain response. The alarm was louder, more sensitive, harder to ignore, which means loneliness is not just a feeling of being alone. It is a state of heightened physical pain sensitivity, a nervous system on alert, scanning constantly for the next exclusion, the next rejection, the next signal that the group is pulling away, and finding it everywhere, in an unreturned message, in a conversation that ends too quickly, in the expression on someone's face that you weren't sure how to read. The lonelier you are, the more everything hurts. We built a world that is more connected than any world that has ever existed, more ways to reach people, more platforms to be seen on, more opportunities to belong to something than our ancestors could have imagined, and loneliness has never been higher. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health epidemic, not a personal failing, not a lifestyle choice. An epidemic, with mortality effects comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Your ancient brain is running its original software in an environment it was never designed for. It is still scanning for the group, still treating exclusion as danger, still firing the same alarm it built 100,000 years ago on a savanna where being alone meant being dead. It doesn't know you're just looking at a phone. It doesn't know the group chat is not a matter of survival. It just knows the signal stopped coming. And it hurts. Exactly the way it was always supposed to.